They called it a joke. A flying beer barrel. A metal bathtub that somehow managed to leave the ground. When the German pilots of the Luftwaffe first saw the American P-47 Thunderbolt soaring across the sky, they didn't feel fear, they felt amusement. The sleek, deadly silhouettes of their Messerschmitt Bf 109s and Focke-Wulf FW 190s had ruled the European skies for years. And now, before them, came this big, round-nosed monster that looked far too heavy to fight. The radio chatter filled with laughter. Was es das? Ein fliegendes Bierfass. What is that? A flying beer barrel. But behind that laughter hid a storm they didn't yet understand. The year was 1943. Europe was burning. Allied bombers were striking deep into occupied territory, and the skies had become a battlefield. Above the clouds, life and death were separated by inches of aluminum and a heartbeat of courage. The Americans needed a plane that could fight its way through hell and bring its pilot back alive. That plane was the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, a machine that looked too heavy to dance, too slow to win, but too tough to die. The story of the P-47 began not in battle, but in imagination, in the hangars and drafting rooms of Republic aviation, where engineers dreamed of building a fighter that could take on anything the Nazis could throw at it. They gave it a heart that roared, the Pratt & Whitney R2800 Double Wasp, a monstrous 18-cylinder radial engine that could unleash more than 2,000 horsepower. Its body was built like armor, wrapped around the pilot like a cocoon of steel. And in each wing, 4 Browning .50 caliber machine guns, a total of 8, ready to spit fire. When the first prototypes took flight, even American pilots hesitated. It was enormous. It weighed nearly 8 tons when fully loaded, heavier than most German bombers. It took a long roll down the runway before its wheels finally lifted off. But once it climbed into the open sky and the throttle opened wide, the P-47 revealed its secret. It could dive faster than any plane in the world. And when it came down from the heavens, it came down like thunder. The Luftwaffe first encountered the P-47 in early 1943. They didn't recognize it. Its round engine cowling and bulky shape made it look almost comical compared to their sleek fighters. Over the radio, German pilots mocked it, calling it the milk jug or the flying barrel. They joked that Americans had sent farm machinery to do a pilot's job. But jokes fade quickly in the face of fire. In one of the earliest encounters, a German ace dove on a P-47 formation over northern France. His Messerschmitt Bf 109 cut through the air with a shriek, and he lined up a perfect shot. Tracer rounds lit the sky, but the P-47 didn't break. The bullets pinged off its fuselage like stones on steel. The American pilot rolled, turned, and dove. The German followed, but in seconds, he realized his mistake. The Thunderbolt was accelerating in the dive, faster, and faster still. His own wings began to shake, his control stick fought back, warning him he was pushing too far. The P-47 rolled over, leveled out, and opened up with all 8 guns. The German ace never saw the rounds coming. Down below, ground troops could hear the sound of those guns, a deep, rolling thunder that echoed across the fields. That's where the Thunderbolt earned its name. Soon, the laughter stopped. The Luftwaffe realized this flying barrel could fight. It wasn't elegant, but it was unstoppable. Its massive frame could absorb hits that would have torn any other fighter apart. Its engine could keep running even with cylinders shot out. Pilots joked that the Thunderbolt could bring you home on a wing and a prayer, and sometimes, just the wing. American pilots who had doubted it at first began to love it fiercely. One of them, Francis Gaby Gabreski, became one of the top aces in the European theater, scoring 28 victories, most of them in a P-47. He said, "It wasn't the prettiest thing to look at, but she'd take care of you. She always brought you home." By late 1943, the P-47 was everywhere, escorting bombers, sweeping the skies, and beginning to dominate ground attack missions. Its climb might have been slow, but once it reached altitude, it could tear across the sky with astonishing speed. And when it dove, it could hit over 500 miles per hour, speeds that German planes couldn't safely match. German pilots soon learned that chasing a Thunderbolt downwards was suicide. Many who tried, never pulled up again. The Americans found their rhythm. Flying in tight formation, the Thunderbolts became shields for the bomber groups. When German fighters tried to break through, the jugs, as American pilots affectionately called them, dropped like hammers from the sun, spitting fire in every direction. In the air, they were hunters. On the ground, they were reapers. By 1944, the P-47 had become one of the most effective ground attack planes in history. It could carry rockets, bombs, and machine guns, a flying arsenal. German soldiers would look up and see the fat silhouette of a Thunderbolt circling above, and they knew what came next: fire. Bridges, trains, tanks, nothing was safe. German tank crews told stories of watching a single P-47 dive through anti-aircraft fire, release its bombs, and pull up through a curtain of smoke. Even when hit, the plane would limp home, engine coughing, wings torn, but still flying. It was said the P-47 was so strong, it could crash land and still be repaired for another mission. On D-Day, June 6, 1944, when Allied troops stormed the beaches of Normandy, hundreds of P-47s filled the sky. They flew low over the sand, destroying bunkers, blasting enemy armor, and cutting off reinforcements. To the soldiers on the ground, their roar was a promise: they weren't alone. When we saw the jugs above, one soldier said, "We felt like God himself was watching over us." The Germans, however, had a different feeling. To them, the sound of that radial engine became the sound of doom. The flying beer barrel that they once mocked now haunted their dreams. It was fast, it was brutal, and it came without warning. Luftwaffe ace Heinz Nock wrote in his diary, "They look ridiculous, like flying barrels, but when they attack, they come like demons." He wasn't alone. Many German pilots admitted privately that the Thunderbolt was almost impossible to bring down. They tried everything. Head-on attacks. High-speed ambushes. Nothing worked. The Thunderbolt could take punishment and dish out twice as much. In one famous mission, a P-47 returned to base with its tail nearly shredded, oil leaking, and a cylinder missing, but it landed safely. Another returned with its canopy blown off, its pilot half-conscious, but the engine still roared. The flying barrel had become a legend. By late 1944, the Luftwaffe was bleeding. Its fuel was scarce, its veteran pilots dead, its aircraft aging. The Allies had taken control of the skies. Wherever the Germans looked, the P-47 was there, strafing trains, cutting power lines, destroying convoys. In one day alone, Thunderbolts destroyed over 500 vehicles across northern France. Even German civilians learned to recognize the sound of its approach. The deep, throaty roar of that radial engine sent them running for cover. There were stories of farmers abandoning their carts and diving into ditches at the first growl of the Thunderbolt above. For the Americans, the P-47 became more than a plane, it was a guardian. Pilots trusted it with their lives. They knew that if they were hit, the jug would still carry them home. By the time the war in Europe ended, the Thunderbolt had flown over 500,000 sorties, destroyed more than 7,000 enemy aircraft in the air, and obliterated tens of thousands of vehicles, tanks, and trains on the ground. It was, without question, one of the deadliest aircraft of the Second World War. And yet, for all its success, its story remained overshadowed by more glamorous fighters: the Mustang, the Spitfire, the Lightning. But among those who truly knew, the P-47 earned eternal respect. Adolf Golland, one of Germany's most respected aces, later admitted, "We underestimated it. It was not beautiful, but it was deadly." That single sentence captured the truth. The Thunderbolt was never meant to win beauty contests. It was meant to win wars. When the war ended and peace returned, the P-47 faded from the front lines. Jets replaced propellers, and the Thunderbolt became a relic of an older, noisier world. But its spirit never vanished. The men who flew it carried its memory for the rest of their lives. They called it a friend, a beast, a savior. Some even said it had a soul, the soul of thunder. In air shows today, when one of the few surviving P-47s takes off, people look up in awe. The massive radial engine growls, and for a moment, the past comes alive again. The sound echoes, deep, rolling, familiar, and those who know its story can almost hear the ghosts of that laughter long ago. The laughter of German pilots who once mocked it as a flying beer barrel. They laughed at its size, its shape, its weight. They thought it was too slow to fight, too big to survive. But when the Thunderbolt roared down from the clouds, guns blazing, the sky answered back. The laughter stopped. And in that silence, the flying barrel earned its place among legends. War creates irony in the cruelest ways. The very thing men mocked can become the thing they fear. The Thunderbolt proved that strength is not always beautiful, and beauty is not always strong. It was an airplane built not for elegance, but for endurance. Not for show, but for survival. It fought not just for victory, but for every man who trusted it to bring him home. So when the engine's thunder fades into memory, when the wind carries that sound into history's silence, one truth remains: the Germans called it a flying barrel. But history remembers it by a different name, the Thunderbolt. And thunder never truly dies.